Do you ever find yourself saying things you later regret? Imagine if you could harness the power of silence to master any situation. In this video, we'll explore 7 moments when staying silent isn't just wise. It's life-changing, according to the teachings of the legendary samurai, Miyamoto Musashi. Lesson 1. When emotions are high, when our feelings are strong, silence is our best friend. When we're very angry, sad, or frustrated, we often use words as weapons that we later wish we hadn't. We can learn from Miyamoto Musashi that when we are angry or upset, our reasoning is muddled and we can't think clearly. When you talk in these situations, it can cause confusion, hurt feelings, and broken relationships. Instead, Musashi says we should take a stop, which is a moment of silence where we can calm down before we speak. This lesson is especially important when there is a fight going on. When we're mad, the words we use can be as sharp as knives and hurt the people we care about deeply. Musashi's wise words tell us that it is better to keep quiet until we feel better than to say something that could hurt someone badly. Being quiet at these times isn't a way to hide how we feel. It's a way to give ourselves time to fully process them. It helps us answer with understanding and kindness instead of acting on impulse. Silence can also help you think deeply when you're going through a tough, stressful time. Musashi thought that the best way to handle any scenario was to understand yourself. By keeping quiet, we give ourselves a chance to think about where our feelings are coming from. Are we mad at someone or something outside of ourselves? Or is there a problem inside us that needs to be dealt with? Self-reflection can help you learn more about yourself and, in the end, help you grow as a person. So, when feelings are high, silence is not a place to hide, but a smart break. It gives us a chance to collect our thoughts, think about how we feel, and make sure that when we speak, our words are calm, thoughtful, and helpful. Musashi taught us that being quiet at these times is a sign of power and understanding, not weakness. By choosing quiet when our feelings are strong, we can escape pointless arguments, make our relationships better, and learn more about ourselves. Lesson 2. When you lack information, people often talk out about things even when they don't have all the facts in today's busy world. Miyamoto Musashi, on the other hand, shows us how important it is to be quiet when we don't know something. When we talk from a place of ignorance, we not only risk sharing false information, but we also hurt our trustworthiness and dignity. Musashi thought it was better to keep quiet and learn than to speak before we understand. It can be tempting to give our views on things we don't know much about in a world where knowledge is easy to find. Social media sites, for example, push us to say what we think right away, without giving us a chance to fully study or understand the topic. Musashi taught us that being quiet is a sign of understanding in these cases. It means we're aware that we don't know enough to add anything useful to the talk yet. Musashi's teaching tells us to be humble as we seek information. When we choose to be quiet when we don't know something, we let others who may know more about the subject teach us. Being humble like this is an important part of growing as a person and learning more about the world around us. Silence gives us a chance to watch and learn before we decide what to say. In and out of fight, Musashi was a master at noticing things. He knew that getting all the important information was the first step to making smart choices. In our daily lives, this could mean looking things up, asking questions, or just waiting to speak until we've heard other points of view. This way, we can be sure that when we do talk, they are well thought out, powerful, and based on facts. So when we don't have enough knowledge, being quiet shows that you are wise and humble. It is a chance to learn, watch, and gather the information you need to make smart choices. Musashi's lessons tell us that saying when we don't know something can hurt us more than help, and that real understanding is knowing when to be quiet and when to learn more. We can become more intelligent, knowledgeable, and valued people if we learn from this lesson. Lesson 3. When your words could hurt. There is a lot of power in words. They can heal or hurt. Miyamoto Musashi, who is good with both swords and the mind, knew that words can mean more than one thing. He shows us that keeping quiet is often the best thing to do when what we say could hurt someone. We should be careful what we say when it might hurt someone else. Musashi's wise words tell us that silence can be a more kind reaction than speaking our minds. There are times when telling the truth, even if it's important, can hurt other people. In these situations, Musashi's lessons say it is important to weigh the harm our words might do against the need to speak them. But that doesn't mean we should avoid tough talks or be afraid to say what we think. Instead, it means we should be aware of how our words can hurt others and choose silence when the chance of hurting someone is too high. When feelings are already running high or when the other person is weak, this lesson is especially important. When we're sad, angry, or critical, for example, it's easy for our words to be misread or taken more seriously than we meant. Musashi shows us that being quiet can be a kind thing to do at these times. It gives the other person time and room to work through their feelings without our words getting in the way. Silence can also be used to calm things down. When there is a disagreement, using mean or hurtful language can make things worse and make people even more angry and resentful. Musashi thought that quiet could be a very effective way to ease stress and keep fights from getting out of hand. We can make a space for peace and thought by choosing not to speak when what we say could hurt. This gives everyone a chance to slow down and look at the situation with a better head. Being quiet is often the kindest and smartest thing to do when our words could hurt someone. As Musashi taught, we should be careful and precise when we use words, just like we should be when we use swords. By staying quiet in these cases, we show that we are not only calm, but also caring and understanding. We take care of our ties and help make the world a better place for everyone. This lesson tells us to be aware of how powerful our words are and to use them wisely, always wanting to help instead of hurt. Lesson 4. When you need to listen. Miyamoto Musashi knew how important it was to listen carefully, which is an art. He shows us that there are times when we need to be quiet so that we can really listen. People who can listen are often overlooked in a world where everyone wants to talk. Still, Musashi's wise words tell us that being quiet while listening is one of the best ways to learn and understand others. When we choose to be quiet, we give ourselves a chance to really understand what someone is saying. It's not enough to just hear what they say. You need to know what they mean, how they feel, and their point of view. Musashi thought that the only way to become truly wise was to understand, and the only way to understand is to actively listen. We can hear new ideas, thoughts, and points of view that we might miss otherwise if we don't speak and fully participate in the listening process. It shows respect to be quiet while you listen. It means we care about what they think and are ready to put in the time to really understand their point of view. This kind of respect helps people bond more deeply and make their relationships better. Musashi taught us that being quiet can be a blessing we give to others, a gift of our full attention and our desire to understand them better. We can also react more thoughtfully when we listen with silence. There is more going on when we are quiet than just waiting for our turn to talk. We are carefully thinking about what the other person is saying. This kind of careful thought makes talks more important and helpful. Musashi thought that every word should be spoken with meaning. We make sure that when we speak, our words have more meaning and fit with the flow of the talk when we listen in silence. Musashi's theory also says that being able to listen in silence can help you control your thoughts. We have to put aside our pride, our need to be heard, and our urge to jump in or take over the talk. Self-discipline like this is important for growing as a person and learning how to communicate well. We can improve our kindness, respect, and knowledge of ourselves and others by practicing listening in silence. When we need to listen, then silence is not only important, it's vital. Musashi taught us that being quiet while listening is a strong way to show respect, understanding, and careful communication. We can make our relationships better, learn new things, and communicate better if we follow this lesson. Musashi thought that silence was an important part of controlling both the mind and the spirit. It shows that you are wise, respectful, and self-disciplined. Lesson 5. When silence speaks louder. Sometimes, the lack of words is more powerful than any words. Miyamoto Musashi, who was very good at planning and being thoughtful, knew that silence could be a powerful way to talk to someone. He shows us that silence can say more than words sometimes, which makes it a strong tool in our relationships with other people. In these situations, silence isn't just the lack of words. It's a decision that has value. A person's quiet can sometimes say more about their strength, determination, or dislike than any words. For instance, if someone is trying to get us to react, keeping quiet can show that you have self-control and confidence. Musashi thought that a real fighter doesn't have to fight every battle. He thought that sometimes the best thing to do is to be quiet and watch what happens. Being quiet in this way doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're taking charge of yourself and the situation. Being quiet can be a strong way to say no. When we can't find the right words to describe how we feel, or when we want to avoid something, silence can make it clear what we want to do. The lessons that Musashi taught us tell us that being quiet can help us keep our energy and peace of mind. It lets us say, "I'm not going to deal with this," without having to explain or defend ourselves. This kind of silence shows that you respect yourself and have power over yourself. People can be helped to think by being left alone in silence. Musashi knew that lessons don't always need to be taught with words. Sometimes, just letting someone sit in silence can help them think more deeply and understand things better. If you don't say anything after someone has spoken in a talk, for example, they may be able to think about what they said. This can make conversations more important and deep because it makes the other person think about what they're saying more deeply. That being said, silence can also be very useful when negotiating or when power is being used. Musashi, who was a planner, knew that silence can make things seem mysterious or unsure, which can be useful sometimes. We can keep information from others, change the flow of a talk, or force others to say more than they meant to by deciding not to speak. You need to know a lot about the people and the situation in order to use silence in this way, but when you do, it can be very strong. That's why silence can be used to show power, control, and effective communication. The lessons of Musashi tell us that silence is not just not speaking. It is a choice that can send strong messages. Understanding when and how to be quiet can help us handle tough scenarios more wisely and effectively. In these situations, silence is not a way to hide. Instead, it's a way to show our strength, set limits, and encourage greater thought in others and ourselves. Lesson 6. When you're criticizing someone. Being critical is a delicate skill, and Miyamoto Musashi knew that it needed to be used with great care. He teaches us that sometimes the best way to deal with criticism is to be quiet. When we criticize someone, what we say can have a big effect, and if we don't say it with care, it can hurt them or make them angry. Musashi's wise words tell us that sometimes keeping quiet is a better and more caring way to deal with problems than criticizing them directly. Musashi thought that feedback should be helpful and aimed at helping the other person grow when it was needed. On the other hand, people can react badly to even helpful feedback if they are not in the right frame of mind to hear it. Musashi taught that being quiet can be a better way to deal with these kinds of situations. We give the other person time to think about what they did without making them feel attacked or judged when we choose to stay quiet. It's sometimes more powerful to stay quiet when someone does something wrong than to criticize them. Musashi knew that people are often the worst judges of themselves. We let the other person figure out what they did on their own when we don't say anything. This might help them change more deeply and for longer than just telling them what they did wrong. In this situation, silence is used to help people think about themselves and grow as people. Musashi's wisdom tells us that not all mistakes need to be talked about right away. Keeping quiet can sometimes be a sign that you trust the other person to see their mistakes and fix them. Silence like this shows respect because it shows that we believe in the other person's ability to get better. We give them the respect to figure things out on their own by not criticizing them. When you don't need to argue, silence can help. No matter how well-meaning the criticism is, it can sometimes make people angry and defensive. Musashi thought that it was smarter to stay out of fights that didn't help a bigger cause. We can keep small problems from turning into bigger problems by choosing silence over criticism. To use this method, we need to be patient and smart enough to know when it's best to keep quiet for the sake of peace and unity. That being said, if you want to criticize someone, it may be better to be quiet. The lessons of Musashi tell us that we should always be careful when we criticize someone and always try to help them, not hurt them. But there are times when being quiet can work just as well or even better. We give other people time to think, grow, and fix their mistakes when we choose silence. This lesson tells us to think about how our words affect other people and to use silence to help them understand, respect, and grow as people. Lesson 7. When apologies are due. Saying sorry is an important part of keeping relationships and being responsible, but Miyamoto Musashi shows us that sometimes we need to be quiet, even when we should be sorry. Even though it might not make sense, Musashi's wise words show how important time and truthfulness are when saying sorry. He thought that silence, when used correctly, could be a strong way to show regret and give us time to think about what we did before we say sorry. When we've done someone wrong, our first reaction might be to say sorry right away to try to make things right quickly. Musashi's lessons, on the other hand, tell us that apologizing too quickly can make us look fake or shallow. In these times, silence helps us fully think about how our actions affected others and how much pain they may have caused. By being quiet, we can make sure that when we say sorry, our words aren't just a way to get out of responsibility, but a real admission of wrongdoing and a promise to make things right. Silence can also give the other person time and room to think about how they feel. If you hurt someone, they might not be ready to hear you say sorry right away. Musashi knew that being quiet in these situations could show that you care about how the other person feels. It shows we are ready to give them time and room to heal before we ask them to forgive us. This kind of quiet isn't a way to avoid taking blame. It's a way to show that you care about how the other person feels. Musashi's ideas say that being quiet can show that we want to make a change. It's not enough to just say sorry. You have to do something too. By staying quiet at first, we show that we are thinking about what we did wrong and how we can do better next time. It's more important to make changes that matter than just saying the right words, which is why this thought is important. Being quiet before we say sorry can make our explanation seem more sincere and weighty when we finally do say it. Anxious people may find that being quiet helps calm down the situation. If we say sorry too soon in this case, it might not go over well and could even make things worse. Musashi thought that waiting for the right time could make things happen. In the heat of the moment, choosing silence lets our feelings cool down and makes room for a more helpful and healing talk later on. So when it's time to say sorry, silence can be a big part of the process. Musashi's lessons tell us that the right time, earnestness, and depth of an explanation are very important for it to mean something. By choosing silence before saying sorry, we can be sure that our words are well thought out, sincere, and come with a real desire to make things better. This lesson teaches us to be patient, thoughtful, and patient when we say sorry, knowing that silence can say a lot about how sincere and intent we are.